What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Bart back with another episode of Bart's Talk. A little bit different today. It's going to be a longer episode because it's also going to be Bart's Picks. Starting this week, as suggested by one of my roommates, Nelson, he said, hey, how about you just do kind of what Clay Travis does and just release one big episode, just talk about the pop culture stuff, your picks, and just do it there. So that's what I'm going to start doing. See how y'all think about it. What y'all think about it. Hope you enjoy it. Bart's Talk segment. Here's what we're going to do. Going to give you my rundown of how my weekend in New Orleans went. Obviously, as you know, the Mississippi State Bulldogs played in New Orleans last week in the Superdome. I'll give you a rundown of my time on Bourbon, my time in the Dome, and all of that good stuff. Then we're going to move on to Bart's Picks. The NFL first. College first, and then NFL. I know I did not release an episode yesterday prior to the Packers-Bears NFL kickoff. I do apologize, but on the other hand, I'm kind of glad because I would have probably picked the Bears. I will also give y'all a little rundown on what I think about that game and where the two teams are moving forward. So, and that's what I'm going to do. You know, these episodes are going to keep getting longer and longer because I'll keep diving into the analyst stuff behind the big games of the weekend. So here we go with Bart's Talks. Had a great time in New Orleans. You know, drove all the way down there. They're one of my friends who I went with. She drove all the way back. But had a great time. Went out Friday night and Saturday night on Bourbon. Spent probably too much money than I should have, but did not break the bank, as they say. Went to a couple nice eating places. Obviously, went to Cafe Du Monde. Had myself one of those beignets, I think is what they call them. Good, I guess. I mean, not really a picky eater. So really didn't, hit the spot per se, but good. I think that's nothing for a French donut. Then the game aspect, the Superdome, it's an incredible facility. Obviously, a little sentimental for me because I'm a Patriots fan, and that is where the dynasty, quote-unquote, began. Super Bowl 36, Adam Vinatieri, 48-yard field goal to beat the then St. Louis Rams. Just a beautiful sight. The banners, I thought, were nice for all the Saints accomplishments. Got to see my two roommates on the field as they are, of course, managers for the Mississippi State football team. Had great seats. Just a terrific and good game, honestly. Kind of wish it wasn't because obviously wanted State to win comfortably, but they didn't. But that's just how it is, especially early in the year, especially the fact that we had a lot of suspensions come down. I'll dive into that in a little bit. And it was great to see this, new starting quarterback, new regime, if you will, in the starting. Of course, it is just for 1 year with Tommy Stevens. It was nice to see a quarterback that could actually throw the ball downfield and complete it. That was a sight that we had not seen the past couple years with Nick Fitzgerald. But yeah, all in all, great weekend on Bourbon Street. Great weekend in New Orleans. It was just a great, beautiful city. Just wouldn't mind going back there at all. That stadium, though, is just state-of-the-art, obviously. Especially being one of the older stadiums in the league, in the NFL. They really have Mercedes-Benz and, the Benson family have really kept that thing running. It was really cold in there, which I'll take the cold in there over the hot we're going to feel tomorrow here in Starkville. Now we're going to dive into the suspensions that, of course, came out. Of course, a couple weeks that came out the day of the game, a couple hours before the game, there was announced who exactly was suspended. They included Willie Gay, linebacker for Mississippi State, Autry, starting defensive, both those guys defensive starters, and Jace Christian, I think I'm saying his last name right, the starting kicker for Mississippi State. They, along with multiple other players, are suspended for at least 8 games. Now, we don't know if it's the first 8 games or what it is. We've just been told 8 games. That was what the NCAA came out and says, that Ed's players were going to be suspended 8 games. So we'll obviously see what happens with that. They'll be back presumably before Bama, so maybe we can still shock the world. Who knows? It sucks because you really saw the absence of those defensive players, especially Willie Gay, shown because Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, were able to just run right down the middle of our defense. It was a sight that we had obviously not seen last year with Jeffrey Simmons, Willie there, of course Leo Lewis, and Errol Thompson. Both of them were still there, but I think they need that third linebacker. They need Willie Gay in there bad. So it will be really interesting to see how the teams, because the competition is going to get better. Southern Miss I would probably put on the same pedestal, maybe a little bit below. Excuse me. Of the Raging Cajuns, who the Bulldogs played last week. But next week we got K-State. Then after that we got Kentucky. And those are running teams. So it'll be interesting to see how we are able to, quote unquote, manage it. Are we going to be able to fill in that hole in the middle of the defense that seems like we have? Or are we just going to have to deal with the fact that we're going to be giving up a lot of points and a lot of rushing yards, which is something that we have not been accustomed to seeing the past couple of seasons. Moving into that's all I got to say about that. Obviously, as the more news comes out, if it comes out that, hey, they get to pick the games or whatever, which I don't see that happen. I think it'll just be the first 8 games. If any news arises, I'll obviously talk about it on this podcast. But now we're going to move into the Bart's Pick segment of the show. And first of all, we're going to start with the Mississippi State game. Now, the games I will be picking this week are Mississippi State taking on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Sorry, a little bit of a cough lately. They obviously played in Starkville this weekend, home opener. Gotta get the cowbells ready. Not the only home opener this week, as Ole Miss takes on Arkansas in Oxford. And for the Memphis game, they face Southern. So I'm just going to give you the picks of those 3 games. And then the other games I'm going to pick this week are the 2 big matchups between 2 top 25 teams. Clemson facing off the visiting Texas A&M Aggies, and of course LSU traveling to Austin to face off against the Longhorns. So starting off with the the Mississippi State game, Bulldogs are 16.5-point favorites. Don't know how I feel about that line, but I think Mississippi State comes out and they win. It's going to be a home opener. The cowbells are going to be ringing, and I think we'll be ringing a lot after a lot of big plays by the offense, and I think the defense is able to bounce back. And I expect a big performance by the team. So actually, I would take us in the 16.5 points. And the other game that I said I was always going to pick, the Ole Miss game. Ole Miss takes on Arkansas. That's a toss-up game because it's basically a battle between who's going to finish last in the SEC West. That's just how it's going to be. That's how it is. Arkansas, though, is terrible. They struggled against a bad FCS Portland State team last week. Ole Miss, they're getting a little bit of flack for losing to Memphis, but that's a good Memphis team, a Memphis team that, in my opinion, can compete for New Year's Six Bowl. And they hung around with them. They came back, Matt Corral, first-year starter. They came back. So I think Ole Miss gets the win, and I guess that would put them at first in the SEC West because they would be the only SEC team that have played an SEC team. So the winner of this game is going to be first in the West. The loser is going to be last place. But Ole Miss, I think, gets the dub over the Razorbacks. In the Memphis game, I think it's just amount of how bad Memphis beats Southern. Southern FCS team. Memphis blows them out, no question. Now in the 2 top 25 matchups, these votes are going to be dandies. I wish. Now, you may be thinking I'm crazy for this. I honestly wish State had an 11 a.m. kickoff this week just so I could be able to watch. Excuse me, so sorry. Both of these games, I will probably be able to catch the end, if not most, of the LSU-Texas game. but the Clemson Texas A&M game kicks off at the same time. But I don't see that game really being a game. Yes, was it close last year? Absolutely. Did Clemson need a now Missouri starting quarterback Kelly Bryant to win the game? They did. But besides the point, you were playing in Death Valley, in Clemson. Kellen Mond, this is going to decide, in my opinion, his legacy at A&M. If he's able to shock the world and end the what is, I believe, a 16-game winning streak that the Tigers have, tremendous. But I think they don't. Trevor Lawrence, I think, bounces back from what was a okay game last week. One rushing touchdown. I believe it was, they said, the first or second of his career, but had one passing touchdown and 2 picks. He bounces back. I think has a big performance. Assures himself a spot in New York City. I mean, he can assure himself a spot in New York City if he just plays subpar the rest of the season, but has a great game tonight. I think he does that. Travis Etienne, in my opinion, is the most underrated player in college football. Why is that? Because he, in my opinion, is the best running back in college football. Jonathan Taylor, yeah, he's okay, but does his team win games? They don't. They go 7-5. They went 7-5, 8-4 last year. Travis Etienne led the country in rushing touchdowns. He had over 200 yards on 12 carries. Now, that did include a 90-yard touchdown, but that's still, let's take the 90-yard touchdown out of the board. That's still, so sorry. That is still 11 rushes for over 100 yards, 115 yards, and 2 touchdowns on just 11 rushes. Travis Etienne, in my opinion, put him in right now, Doak Walker Award winner, barring injury, of course. The Tigers blow out the Aggies. Now, let's get into the other game. Texas taking on LSU. LSU is actually a road favorite. Traveling to Austin, Joe Burrow, I think, is the reasoning for that. Had a terrific game last week. I think it was 4 incompletions, 5 touchdowns. That's absurd. Absurd. Now, it was against, I think, Georgia State, Georgia Southern. But still, it wasn't Georgia State because Georgia State was too busy beating Tennessee. It was Georgia Southern, excuse me. But still, he was able, when you're able to throw more touchdowns than incompletions, you had a great game. I don't care who you are, you had a great game. I don't care who you are, who you're playing, you had a great game. Having said that, I think he has another great game Saturday. LSU comes out of Austin 2-0. Texas takes a big hit for their college playoff hopes. And after losing this game, they'll have to win out, in my opinion, which includes probably beating Oklahoma twice. And after seeing Oklahoma and Jalen Hurts, good luck, buddy, beating them once. This team, I'll get to that in a little bit. But LSU, I think, clears the clock. And I think the 2 Texas teams go 0-2 in the big Saturday showdowns. Now, getting to Oklahoma, Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, I was reluctant to think it at the beginning of the season just because I'm like, okay, it's hard. So sorry. It's a new system. Those 2 guys before their great seasons, had multiple years in the system. He did not. He's not going to be able to do that. And what does he do? He goes off for 500 yards against Houston. Absurd. I think if he stays on this course, he will win the Heisman. It will be their 3rd straight Heisman with a 3rd straight different player. And Oklahoma will go to the playoff and be going into the playoff, I think, 13-0. I don't see them with Jalen Hurts. Because he was ticked off after the fact that they gave up tons of yards and tons of points against Houston, especially in that second half. I don't think he's going to allow them to overlook anybody. He's going to prepare this team to win a national championship. Now, will they? I don't know. But this team, I think, will be 13-0. I do not see them slipping up against Texas either time they play them, because I do think those 2 teams will play in the Big 12 title game again. So let's recap my picks for college football. State takes down Southern Miss. Ole Miss takes down Arkansas. Memphis blows out Southern University. Clemson knocks off A&M. And LSU goes into Austin and comes out with a W. Now let's talk about NFL games. NFL kickoff is this week. The games I'm going to be picking are, sorry, but I'm a Patriots fan, hate me for it. I don't care. I'm going to be picking that game. I'm going to be picking the Patriots game every week. And as an homage to one of my roommates, or to both of my roommates, one's a Titans fan. I will be picking the Titans game every week. And I will be picking the Dolphins game every week. And then I'll be picking the Monday night game and Sunday night game. So this week we'll have 2 Monday night games. And since the Patriots are playing on Sunday night, that'll go as the Sunday night football game. Let's talk about what happened last night. The Bears' offense looked terrible. Both offenses looked awful. It was a sloppy game from start to finish. Just completely shocking, especially the especially the hype that these two teams had going into the season. Aaron Rodgers, new system. Mitchell Trubisky can't take that next step. Well, Rodgers did not look good in that new system, and Trubisky did not look like he can take any steps up. So if I'm a Bears fan, I would be extremely concerned, because if this team plays like this week to week, they could be out of playoff picture by mid-October. Now, I don't think they will. I think Matt Nagy straightens them up. But, I mean, you're starting behind the 8 ball now because you're 0-1, not only in the record, but in your division. And that one game you lost was at home. So I think it's going to be extremely tough for them to – I think it may be extremely tough for them to bounce back from this, but we'll see. I mean, I could be looking like a fool in, 3 months because they could have ran off 10, 11 straight. Now let's start with the Titans game. They take on the Browns. And sorry, Nelson, but you got to go to Cleveland. This is supposed to be the Browns season. I think it starts at 1-0. The Browns knock off the Titans, and probably the first of many games that Titans fans will be screaming for Ryan Tannehill and trying to get rid of Marcus Mariota. Now the Dolphins take on the Ravens in Miami. I'm picking the Ravens, but I would not be surprised in the slightest if Miami comes out with this win. Everyone's like, are you crazy? They're supposed to be tanking. One word. Fitzmagic, baby. Ryan Fitzpatrick, of course, is their starting quarterback to start the season for the Dolphins. And we've seen him pull magic out of his hat before with the Bills and, of course, last year with the Bucs. So would not be surprised if we see him pull it off this year with the Dolphins. Now let's get to the Sunday night game, which, of course, my Patriots take on the Steelers. We're going to win. We drop the banner, and we win. That's what we do. Of course, saying that last time we dropped the banner, we lost. But I just don't see us. This is the type of team that we always play tough. There's always a tough game when we play them in the regular season, the Steelers. But Sony Michel's going to be running the ball. Julian's going to be catching it. James White's going to be out of the backfield, and Josh Gordon's going to be catching deep passes. Tom Brady's going to throw for over 300 yards, I think. And the Patriots going to wax the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now let's get to the two Monday Night Football games. Of course, it's a doubleheader for Week 1. The Saints hosting the Texans and the Raiders hosting the Broncos. The Saints, I think, demolished the Texans. They're going to come out ticked off because of how their season, of course, ended last year. I mean, they created a rule because of what happened in that game. They created a rule because of what happened in that game. They come out. Texans, I think, are going to suck this season because they traded away one of their best defensive players. They're one of their best defensive players for next to nothing. So I think the Saints start out waxing them Week 1. Raiders and Broncos games. Here's what I like to call, who wants to suck for Tua? Derek Carr's days in Oakland, or I guess Oakland, Vegas per se, whatever you want to call them, are numbered. And I think it begins this Monday night. But I think it begins with a win. I think the Raiders, of course, Antonio Brown, that whole debacle, craziness. I mean, I do not see how you reward a player who continues to act disrespectful, like that. But, I guess as long as he shows up on Sundays, who cares what happens? Or in this case, Monday, who cares what happens Tuesday to Sunday? The Raiders, I think, pull off the win against the Broncos, so I think will be terrible. I mean, when you have Joe Flacco, he's going to be the savior. And Drew Lock, the guy who's supposed to be the guy we're grooming, he's out for the first 8 weeks of the season. So what if they start out 0-5, like, let's go to the kid. Oh, wait, we can't because he's hurt. Does not bode well. So sorry. So recapping, Week 1 NFL picks. Patriots beat the Steelers. Browns beat the Titans. Ravens beat the Dolphins, but I would put the Dolphins on upset alert. Ravens beat Dolphins. And Texans lose to the Saints. And the Broncos fall to the Raiders on Monday night. Thank you for listening, and I'll see y'all next week.